Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to my final video about the 2023 Telluride Film Festival. Throughout the month of September, I've given you 9 reviews about some of the best films I saw there over the course of about 4 days. And I was just taken with so many movies. I mean, obviously Poor Things and Saltburn are the two major standouts, but there were at least 3 or 4 other films that I loved, and most of them I really liked. So out of the 13 films I saw at Telluride, I'm going to be counting down my list in this video of my 10 favorites. Now, before we get to my final list, I also wanted to say a few words about the other 4 films I saw at the festival that I did not make videos for on the channel. Let's start with the only documentary I saw, which was Thank You Very Much, about the life of Andy Kaufman. This first-time feature from director Alex Braverman is a terrific look at Kaufman, how he came to be so famous. We get so many interesting, insightful clips of Kaufman when he's on the stage performing for audiences, when he's off the stage only with like a select group of people. There's previously unseen behind the scenes footage. We get moments with his girlfriends, with his family. We get audio recordings. If you're intrigued by Andy Kaufman the way so many of us still are, many decades since his premature death in the 1980s, this film will give you what you're looking for. I love the interviews with some famous people like Danny DeVito, Steve Martin, some of Kaufman's co-stars on Taxi, and you really get a complete picture of who this guy was, not just the performer we came to know and love, but also the man too. There's not anything necessarily revolutionary about this documentary. It's a pretty standard doc. Like, you have the talking heads, you have lots of footage of Kaufman, and it's put together really well. It's very entertaining. It's not the most memorable documentary you'll ever see. Like, I would say the next day I wasn't really thinking about it. I enjoyed it while it was playing, but I haven't really thought much about it in the days and weeks since. But if you adore the work of Andy Kaufman and want to learn more about him, definitely check out Thank You Very Much. I give this film a 6.5 out of 10. Next up is Fingernails, which I had to check out due to its extraordinary cast. This movie has Jeremy Allen White, Annie Murphy, Jessie Buckley, and Riz Ahmed. I mean, those 4 people will get me into any film. Like, if they're in the movie, like, I want to see it. And I was intrigued by its concept. This is kind of a science fiction film told in the manner of a straightforward drama. It's one of those movies where you're just tossed into a world that is very much like our own, but there have been advances in certain technology. In this movie, it's that we can actually figure out if 2 people are actually in love with each other, are compatible based on their fingernails. If you remove their fingernails and put them both into a machine, the machine tells you if it's 0%, if neither one is in love with the other, if it's 50%, if one loves the other, but the other doesn't love that person back, or 100%, both people love each other, and if that happens, they get a certificate, and they get married, and they live happily ever after, right? Well, our protagonist of this movie, Anna, played by Jessie Buckley, she scored 100% with her husband, played by Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, and they've been together a few years. They're very happy together. Anna is kind of fed up with her teaching job, so she goes to work for the institute that actually does this fingernails process. She wants to be a part of it. She wants to be a part of this new revolution of love connections, and so we get a lot of behind the scenes at this institute of how this process works, and she gets the job, and she shadows someone who's been there a lot longer, Riz Ahmed's character, Amir, and wouldn't you know it, as the movie goes on, she starts to develop feelings for Amir. But how can that happen? The machine has already said that she's in love with her husband, and so why is she developing these feelings for another man? And so that's the main idea of the movie. Can she be in love with 2 people at the same time? Can she fall out of love with her husband and fall in love with Amir. And this movie got kind of a mixed review, I would say, at Telluride. Like, a couple people I talked to said it was like their least favorite of the weekend. Like, it's not a great movie. For about 45 minutes, it was kind of like a 5 out of 10 for me. It was okay. Like, the actors make it compelling enough. Like, the actors keep you going. But it is kind of a slight movie for a while. A lot of the scenes are kind of slow, and no matter how intriguing the core idea is of the film, it never quite takes off in a way that you want it to. It always just stays a little bit too grounded. I feel like there could have been a little bit more fantasy in the movie. It could have been a little bit more exciting. But once the characters really take over in the second half, and we do get a couple surprises in the last 30 to 40 minutes I did not see coming, the performances are strong. The movie did eventually work for me enough. So I give Fingernails like a slight recommendation. I would give this one a 6 out of 10. Now we get to the only movie at the Telluride Film Festival I didn't like. And I didn't like this movie really at all. This one is a bore, a swing, and a miss. I give it a couple points for ambition, and it's got some interesting ideas in it with a stronger screenplay, better direction. Like, maybe some of the elements here could have worked better because it does have an astonishing cast, including some surprise cameos. But yeah, I did not really like Wildcat, the new film directed by Ethan Hawke and starring his daughter, Maya Hawke, as Flannery O'Connor. This was one of the hot ticket movies going into Telluride weekend, I would say. I am a huge fan of Ethan Hawke as an actor, as a screenwriter. The Before trilogy is my favorite trilogy of all time. And I found it interesting him directing his own daughter in a movie. Maya Hawke is a talented actor. I love her in Stranger Things. And Laura Linney plays Flannery's mom. So there's a lot going for this one. Like, I was rooting for it when I sat down at that 9 a.m. screening, 9:30 a.m. screening. I was like, come on movie. I had heard mixed things. It had already played, I think, once or twice before I eventually saw it. But yeah, this was the only time during my long Telluride weekend where I just kind of slumped down in my seat, and by the hour mark, I was like, this isn't working at all. Like, the points for ambition are for not just giving us a straightforward biopic about Flannery O'Connor. What the movie tries to do is tell us the story of Flannery O'Connor while also giving us flashes of her short stories. The characters are also played by the actors in the Flannery O'Connor biopic element of the movie. So Maya Hawke plays Flannery, and then Maya Hawke also plays many of the protagonists in these little short story segments. I want to say there's like 5 or 6 of them, maybe 7 throughout the movie. And I was going with it at first. Like, the opening 15-20 minutes, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'll go with this. But the problem is the movie bounces around to so many different narratives for its entirety that you never really latch on to anything or anyone. Nothing has any emotional resonance. You're with these characters for 10 minutes, and then you're back with Flannery and her mom for a couple scenes, and then you're off in some other story, and it's too much. I mean, the technicals are fine, cinematography, production design, costume design, all that is great, and again, there's some really cool cameos. Liam Neeson shows up as a priest. Cooper Hoffman from Licorice Pizza has a terrific scene near the end. But when this movie ended, my hand just kind of closed on air. I didn't know what to take away from this one. It's not that entertaining. It's not very moving. It's just kind of there. So this one didn't work for me. And I wasn't the only one. At one point in this film, I want to say it was about 75 minutes in, I was seated near the front of the Werner Herzog Theater in a packed audience, and I had 2 older women on both sides of me. At about the 75-minute mark, I looked to my left, and the woman on my left was fast asleep. And then I looked to the woman on my right, and she was also fast asleep. So I was like, I don't think this movie's gonna work for general audiences. Like, this one's not gonna go too far. Wildcat is not getting into the Oscars. Like, I don't even know if it has a distributor yet. Like, this is gonna be a tough one. So yeah, sadly, Wildcat you can skip. It's not very good. Honestly, for me, the best part of the film was the Q&A at Telluride after, with Ethan Hawke, Maya Hawke, and Laura Linney. The Q&A was, for me, much more interesting than the movie itself. Wildcat really should have been a lot better, but it's not. It is a slog. I give Wildcat a 3 out of 10. And then the final film I did not make a YouTube video for is The Royal Hotel, written and directed by the great Kitty Green, who made The Assistant in 2019. This is a terrific thriller set in middle of nowhere, Australia, starring Julia Garner from The Assistant. It has a superb sense of place and almost non-stop tension. For my full review of The Royal Hotel, check out my exclusive video at the Patreon. I have provided the link in the description below. Alright, and that takes us to the final top 10 list. My 10 favorite films I saw at Telluride. Number 10 is The Bike Riders. As I talked about in the video, I liked this movie. I didn't love it. I think the biggest takeaway is the Jodie Comer performance. I think if anything can get into the Oscars, it's Comer for Best Supporting Actress. She is on another level in this movie. Whenever she was on the screen, I was really sitting upright and interested in what was happening. But the movie is kind of familiar if you've seen Sons of Anarchy. Like, it didn't have a ton of surprises for me. So I would just say I liked The Bike Riders. I didn't love it. Number 9 is Rustin. This is lower in my list than I initially expected. As I talked about in my video, a lot of this movie is excellent, but when it ended, I felt like there was more. It felt like there was 10 to 15 more minutes that were missing. It didn't hit me emotionally at the very end that I was expecting, and so I really walked away feeling like slightly disappointed. Even though the majority of the film is excellent, I was also really distracted by the Chris Rock performance. I don't know why he was cast in this. He has like at least 10 to 15 scenes in this movie, and he's a fine actor sometimes, but he didn't really fit this one very well, so I struggled with him. But the Coleman Domingo performance is extraordinary. I think Domingo is going to get into Best Actor. I don't know about things like Best Picture, Screenplay, Technicals. I don't know how well this movie will do. I do think it gets into Best Actor, though, for Domingo. He is exceptional in this film. Number 8 is The Royal Hotel. Again, if you want more of my in-depth thoughts about this movie, head on over to the Patreon for my exclusive video. But yeah, this is a fun one. This is a dusty, merciless thriller that will keep you on your toes all the way to its gorgeous final shot. The acting is superb, and I really, really like that one. Number 7, The Zone of Interest. This was the hardest watch of the Telluride weekend. This is a difficult movie to sit through, I found, even though I do think it is a terrific piece of filmmaking. It's one of those movies that comes around every so often that you don't really enjoy while it's playing out, but it's so effective, so haunting, you can't stop thinking about it in the weeks that follow. Even though I was kind of struggling through The Zone of Interest, I was recognizing the craft on display, the performances are excellent, the direction is creative and different, and it's unlike any movie that's ever been made, especially about World War II, about Auschwitz. The director is clearly gifted. He might get into Best Director at the Oscars. It's a film that's not going to work for everyone, but it is very haunting. I have not stopped thinking about it. Number 6 is Nyad, the thrilling new biopic about Diana Nyad, who swam all the way from Cuba to Florida in her 60s. The film stars Annette Bening and Jodie Foster, two powerhouse performances that I do think will get into the Oscars. I mean, Best Actress is already really competitive, but Annette Bening has such a legacy, has 4 Oscar nods behind her, and she is excellent in this movie. I do think she can get in. And Jodie Foster has not been this good in many years. I loved her performance too. This is the film that made me cry the most at Telluride. I was kind of gone in the last 10 minutes. It's really exciting, especially in the third act. It's got a couple pacing issues here and there, and some of the backstory elements I don't think work at all, but for the most part, it's a thrilling watch that you're definitely going to want to check out. Number 5, All of Us Strangers, the new film from Andrew Haigh. If you are a fan of his work like I am, going back to Weekend and 45 Years and even Lean on Pete, this is another terrific film of his most ambitious film by far. I mean, he takes things to kind of a surreal place in All of Us Strangers that you kind of have to go with. There are some leaps this narrative takes that some people might be like, wait, what? What's happening now? We get to the third act, there's a twist at the end. You might be like, what? Wait a sec. No. Like, I could see All of Us Strangers not working for everybody. I'm not quite at the level of like, this is a masterpiece. Some people at Telluride were saying like they were crying their eyes out in the last 10 minutes. I do think All of Us Strangers is surreal enough that I could never really take that emotional leap, but this is still a fantastic work of art. Great performances in this movie, especially from the lead, Andrew Scott from Fleabag. He's been good in things here and there. I really loved him in Fleabag. This is one of his first like lead performances in a movie, and wow, just wow. He is really on fire in this film. I loved him in this. I love the cinematography, the music, the frank depiction of LGBTQ relationships. Like, there are a couple little things about the movie I think people might struggle with, the way I did, especially at the end. But overall, this is a must-see work of art. I really loved it. Number 4 is Anatomy of a Fall, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes last May, and I'd been hearing nothing but raves about for the last few months. So when I heard it was playing at Telluride, I made my way very quickly to see it. I saw it the first night I was there. Even though I had been up at that point for like 18 hours and I really was tired and wanted to go to my Airbnb and go to bed, I was like, no. We're going to watch Anatomy of a Fall. And it, kind of like The Zone of Interest, which also played at Cannes, is not the easiest watch. Anatomy of a Fall is 2.5 hours long. A lot of it takes place in a courtroom. It's very serious. It's very sad at times, but it is a brilliant piece of filmmaking. Like, by the end, I was just like, this is one of the best films I've seen in a long while. The acting, the direction. It's a film I think is definitely going to factor in at the Oscars, probably in Best Picture, Best Actress maybe, definitely in Screenplay. Like, this is a movie that's going to be talked about for many, many months to come. As soon as it opens in your town, go check out Anatomy of a Fall. It is a masterpiece. Number 3 is The Holdovers, the new film from Alexander Payne starring Paul Giamatti. This film delighted me from beginning to end. I loved every second. The performances in this film are outstanding. I love the sense of place in The Holdovers. It's very funny. It's by far the funniest film I watched at Telluride. Like, at least 15 or 20 big laughs, and you're smiling all the way through, while there's also big emotion, sad revelations. This is probably my favorite Alexander Payne film since Sideways, also starring Paul Giamatti, and it is just a near flawless piece of work I recommend to everyone. I think it's going to be a huge Oscar player, definitely getting into Best Picture, Director, Actor, Supporting Actress, and Screenplay. I mean, I even think Supporting Actor is on the table for Dominic Sessa. This is his first movie, his first role in a film ever, and he hits it out of the park. He is excellent in this. Do not miss The Holdovers. You will love it. Number 2 is Poor Things. It's kind of crazy to me that a movie this perfect, this extraordinary, isn't my number 1 choice. But I had 2 films I loved with a capital L at Telluride, and this one for me is just like slightly beneath my number 1 choice, but they're pretty neck and neck. They're real close. Poor Things is a daring, bold, extraordinary film. I think it has the potential of winning Best Picture of 2023 at the Oscars. I also think Emma Stone gives the performance of the year. She is clearly the frontrunner to win Best Actress for a second time. I mean, I have always adored her work. She's great in La La Land and The Favorite, but she has never been this good in a movie. Get ready for the Emma Stone performance in Poor Things. And Yorgos Lanthimos, a fantastic director. Every film he makes seems to be a little better than the last one, and this is his masterpiece. Poor Things is an astonishing film that's going to get at least, I would say, 11 Oscar nominations, and is going to rank number 1, number 2, number 3 on many people's top 10 lists. Whenever you have a chance to see Poor Things, go see it. You will not be disappointed. I love this movie, but I guess I don't quite love Poor Things quite as much as my number 1 choice, Saltburn, written and directed by Emerald Fennell, who made Promising Young Woman and won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. This is her second feature, and she is swinging for the fences here, and it's a film that's going to be divisive. It's not going to work for everybody. I was in love with this movie from the opening minute, the way she takes us into Oliver's world and never looks back. This is an extraordinary piece of filmmaking that never let me down, that went to some really challenging, scary, shocking places that I would not even think to ruin for you here. The less you know about Saltburn, the better. The second half of this movie has some surprises in store I promise you will not see coming, and it's just incredible. Saltburn is one of my favorite films of the last 5 years. It's a film I can't wait to own and have on my Blu-ray shelf behind me. I'm going to be watching this thing over and over and over again. Because of the subject matter, I don't know how well it's going to do at the Oscars. I hope it gets into at least 2 or 3 categories. Supporting actress for Rosamund Pike would be really cool. I do think Best Original Screenplay for Fennell is possible, and cinematography. Barry Keoghan getting into Best Actor would make me jump out of my seat and cheer, but I don't think that's going to happen. Regardless of how well this movie plays in award season, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care that much about this particular film. I just love this movie with my whole heart, and I sincerely hope that you love it too. It is my #1 favorite film I saw at the 2023 Telluride Film Festival. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments below which films that I saw at the Telluride Film Festival are you most excited to check out in the weeks and months to come. We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.